take a closer look at what Iranians are voting for. The parliament has 290 members, and each MP has a term of 4 years. Their main responsibilities are dealing with legislation as well as approving the annual budget. Voters will also select 88 clerics to the Assembly of Experts. They serve for 8 years and have the power to appoint the next supreme leader. All candidates have to be vetted by the Guardian Council. That influential 12-member body works under the supreme leader. 6 members are experts in Islamic law chosen by the supreme leader, and the rest are elected by parliament. And they've already disqualified almost half of the candidates, which equates to about 12,000 candidates. All right, for more analysis on these elections and what they mean for Iran, TRT World's Soraya Lennie joins me on the set. Soraya, so we have 2 votes today. Let's start off with the parliamentary ones. A lot of media outlets are saying, okay, this is the first election since the nuclear deal, but it's also the first election since Hassan Rouhani as president. Is this basically a referendum on him, on his rule?
Basically, you could argue that, yeah, effectively, because he's halfway through his first term. And he had promised, of course, when he was running for president, that he would try to do a couple of major things. The first was, of course, the nuclear deal. He said that he would get that out of the way and remove sanctions. He's effectively done it. That's check. That's number 1 off the list. The second thing, the second most important thing for those people who voted for Rouhani is domestic reform. Now, he can't reform Iran without support of the parliament. So, of course, if you're voting for a reformist or a moderate parliament, you want to see Rouhani, or at least give Rouhani the ability to effect that change that he promised.
Okay. When you look at the second elections, the all-important Assembly of Experts, these 88 clerics that have the ability to appoint the country's supreme leader, quite important in that respect.
Well, absolutely. Now, this is different to Parliament in that these members are elected for 8 years, these 8-year terms, as you mentioned before. So, of course, that's a much longer period of time. Now, many of these clerics are quite old themselves as well. So it's quite usual to see that the incumbent just basically gets re-elected in this particular assembly. But the most important aspect of the assembly is, of course, it chooses the supreme leader. Now, should the need arise in the next 8 years, the members who will be successful in running in this election will have that very heavy burden of choosing the next supreme leader. Now, there are people like Hashemi Rafsanjani, the former president, the current president, Hassan Rouhani, who are running also for the Assembly of Experts themselves to sit on this assembly, hoping that they can influence a more moderate tone over this particular assembly.
Okay. When you look at the campaign period, it's actually quite short when you compare it to other countries. Does this play in favor of a particular group?
Well, it does. It plays in favor of the incumbents and also the conservatives, because it is a conservative parliament, and it has been a conservative parliament for about 12 years now. We really haven't seen a reformist or a moderate parliament since probably the first term of Mohammad Khatami, and that was at least 12 years ago. So it really does play in their favor. However, what the reformers are doing, they have put out something called the List of Hope. Now, it helps voters basically identify people who are running in a particular bloc. And this is the reformist bloc. It's headed by Mohammad Aref, who also ran for president against Rouhani. Now, he's the leading reformer who's running for parliament. Now, in this particular List of Hope has a lot of names, including his. So voters can then identify people who perhaps align with their own political positions. So that does help out newer people who are running, people who may not have big names, for example.
Okay, got it, right. So, Lennie, we thank you for that analysis.